Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Okay, so I know you guys probably want to talk about the debate. If you haven't seen it, then trust me, you don't want to hear about it. But I will be getting to that right after this episode. For now, we've got some review of voter suppression and some good news on UBI to cover. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. You make this show possible. So the House released a new HEROES bill that is $2.2 trillion and includes funding for small businesses, childcare, schools, states, testing, healthcare, housing, SNAP, elections, COVID OSHA regulations, a second $1,200 stimulus check, and $600 a week in UI boost until the end of 2021. Mnuchin has said that they will give compromise one more try and expressed optimism. Not sure that I share it, considering how entrenched the Senate is in offering no solution remotely approaching the scope of the problem. But hey, maybe they'll grow a brain/conscience in the next week or so. Anything's possible, right? So a couple of good voter suppression videos have come out recently, one in general and one specifically for Georgia. They're a good overview of some of the history of voter suppression laws in America, how they happen, how they disguise themselves, and how they result in politicians selecting their voters instead of voters selecting their politicians. Check them out below. Channel 4 also put together a report on the intersection of voter suppression and data rights by investigating how Trump's campaign in 2016 bought and harvested data on voters to target black voters in key states to dissuade them from voting with targeted ads in social media facilitated by Cambridge Analytica. Some of these ads remained undisclosed by Facebook. Incidentally, black turnout dropped to record lows in that election. Not only is this a tragic example of the state of Republican politics, it's an example of why we need data rights. Speaking of, Yang recently wrote an article on why he supports California's Prop 24 data rights bill that you can check out below, and the data privacy series is coming up. It will be 3 events, a screening of the highly popular social media documentary, The Social Dilemma, on October 2nd, a data privacy panel moderated by Andrew on October 4th, and a day of action to register to vote, advocate for Prop 24, sign up with the DDP, and follow Yes on 24 and the DDP on October 6th. Learn more and register at the link below. Good news, the UK are not the only country with a major political party formally adopting UBI. South Korea's highly alliterative People Power Party, as part of its 10 major policy pledges adopted September 2nd, said that it will actively help the South Korean public lead a stable and free life through basic income. 14 progressive lawmakers submitted a bill last week that would create a new committee to discuss how basic income can be funded, with plans to start distributing 300,000 won a month in 2022 and at least 500,000 won a month in 2029. 300,000 won is about $430. The concept is gaining ground not only in the left, but also among conservatives who traditionally favor small government. Meanwhile, in Canada, a request for proposals for a feasibility study for a guaranteed basic income program has been issued by the Nunavut Department of Family Services. In 2019, 37% of residents were on income assistance. They say a recent ransomware attack on government public services, as well as the pandemic, have demonstrated the need for better income assistance. Quote, "There is a need for a long-term, simplified, and sustainable solution to provide financial supports for those most in need, while not creating a disincentive to participate in the economy." End quote. The feasibility study's goal is to come up with solutions for how the program could be implemented, with an initial report due by January 31st and a final report no later than December 31st of 2021. Yang visited the Hard Factor Sports podcast for a fun interview on the Yang campaign, problems with our democratic system, UBI, automation, the election, and more. Yang will also be attending a virtual brunch on October 4th with David Kim and musician Clara. Check out the link below for information and registration. Just prior to the debate, PolitiFact released a review of Trump's overall record on their Truthometer. The result? Since 2011, they fact-checked 853 of his statements. 618 were either mostly false, false, or pants on fire false, meaning that 72% of Trump's statements were in the false portion of the rating system. I can already hear you brushing this off. Trump lies, everyone knows that, or there might be a few of you making excuses for him, probably saying PolitiFact isn't trustworthy based on little more than them delivering a verdict that you don't want to hear. Let's get something straight here. Our ability to progress as a nation depends on our ability to have constructive conversation around true facts and data so that we can know if what we're doing or proposing is going to help or hurt. If we allow lying to become the accepted norm, we will have no way to even know if we're on the right path and no way to discuss it. I shouldn't have to say this, but truth matters. Facts matter. Empirical evidence matters. Without that, we descend back into the Dark Ages. We must fight the rising tide of disinformation or it will swallow civilization whole. And step one is to not get pulled into it yourself. Be critical of your own biases before anyone else's. Make sure that you are thinking as clearly and objectively as possible. Make sure that you are critical of the sources of your information, including this podcast. I do my best to vet the information I share with you, but there is no such thing as a completely objective human being. I have biases that I battle with, and they will, to some degree, affect what news I think is worth sharing, what sources I gather from, what perspective I take on the information, etc. You must always be your own first line of defense against misinformation, and it's never been more important to be skeptical. Before you share any fact, check it and cross-check it. Avoid radicalization. Avoid tunnel vision on one or two issues to the exclusion of all other vitally important issues. Avoid partisan loyalty. Tell everyone to keep this question in the back of their mind every time they form an opinion. If it were a member of the other party saying or doing this thing, would I judge it the same? Every one of us has a responsibility for helping to keep humanity sane. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the voter suppression videos, the South Korea and Canadian UBI articles, check out the data privacy series and Kim Brunch, brace your mind against misinformation and demand honesty from your politicians, help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petition, flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the Resist Bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.